What ancient humans did when they fell in love. Helen Fisher is a biological anthropologist at Rutgers University. She has spent more than 30 years studying one question: what actually happens inside a human being when they fall in love? She has scanned the brains of hundreds of people who describe themselves as deeply, actively in love. And what she found changed how scientists think about love entirely. The brain regions that activate during romantic love are not the regions associated with emotion. They are the regions associated with drive, motivation, and survival. The same regions that fire when you are hungry, when you are thirsty, when your body is telling you that something is urgently, fundamentally necessary. Her conclusion was simple and uncomfortable. Love is not a feeling. Love is a drive. As biological and as urgent as the need for food or water. And this drive did not begin with us. It began with the humans who came before us, long before language, long before cities, long before anyone had a word for what they were feeling. So what did ancient humans actually do when they fell in love? The answer archaeology gives us is both simpler and more powerful than anything modern culture has produced. They stayed. Let me give you a few examples and you will understand exactly what that means. In 2005, archaeologists excavating a site in Mantua, Italy, made a discovery that stopped the entire dig. 2 skeletons, buried together, facing each other, foreheads touching, arms wrapped around one another. They had been lying there for 6,000 years. Whoever buried them placed them that way deliberately, not side by side, not separately, face to face, still holding on. Researchers named them the lovers of Valdaro. And the photograph of those 2 skeletons became one of the most shared archaeological images in history, not because it was surprising, because it was immediately, deeply recognizable. Here is another example. Paleoanthropologist Eric Trinkhaus at Washington University spent decades studying ancient skeletal remains. He found individuals with missing limbs, severe injuries, and degenerative diseases so serious that independent survival would have been completely impossible. And yet these individuals had lived for years, sometimes decades, after their injuries. Someone had stayed. Someone had fed them. Someone had protected them long after any practical reason to do so had disappeared. One individual found at Shanidar Cave in Iraq, dating back 50,000 years, had a withered arm, severe vision damage, and injuries that covered most of his body. He lived into his 40s. Ancient humans rarely lived past 30. Someone kept him alive for an extra decade, simply because they would not leave. One more example. At a burial site in Sungir, Russia, dated to 34,000 years ago, archaeologists found 2 adolescents buried head-to-head in a single grave. Their bodies were covered in thousands of hand-carved ivory beads. Researchers estimate it would have taken a single adult working full-time approximately 10,000 hours to carve all of them. 10,000 hours for a burial. For 2 young people. 34,000 years ago. Now here is a framework that explains what ancient humans understood about love that we have largely forgotten. First, love was expressed through presence, not words. Ancient humans had no love letters, no songs, no poetry, no language sophisticated enough to say I love you the way we mean it today. So they expressed it entirely through action. They stayed close. They fed the injured. They carried the weak. They decorated the dead. Love was not something you said. It was something your behavior proved every single day. Second, love was marked publicly and ceremonially. Across dozens of prehistoric sites, archaeologists have found evidence of elaborate personal ornamentation, appearing specifically in burial and mourning contexts. Shell beads, ochre pigment on the body, flowers placed carefully in graves, feathers attached to clothing during periods of loss. Ancient humans understood something modern culture is only beginning to relearn. That grief and love require a visible, public, physical expression. That the people around you need to witness what you are carrying. Mourning was not private. It was communal. It was worn on the body for everyone to see. Third, love was treated as survival, not luxury. Helen Fisher's brain scans showed that love activates the same neural pathways as hunger and thirst. Ancient humans did not experience love as an optional addition to life. They experienced it as a fundamental biological need, which is why they organized entire communities around it. Why they spent 10,000 hours carving beads for someone they lost. Why they buried their dead facing inward, still holding each other after 6,000 years. They were not being romantic. They were responding to one of the most powerful drives the human nervous system produces. Now you might say this all sounds beautiful, but ancient humans also lived short, brutal lives full of danger and survival pressure. How could love have been this important? Here is how. Anthropologist Sarah Blaffer-Hrdy at UC Davis spent years studying cooperative behavior in early human communities. She found that the communities that survived longest were not the strongest or the most aggressive. They were the ones with the deepest bonds between individuals. Love, attachment, and long-term pair bonding were not luxuries ancient humans indulged in when life got easy. They were survival strategies. The communities where individuals stayed for each other, cared for each other, and refused to abandon each other outlasted every other group they competed with. Love was not the opposite of survival. Love was how they survived. I want to close with something that puts all of this into perspective. The lovers of Valdaro, those two skeletons found in Italy still embracing after 6,000 years, were eventually moved to a museum in Mantua. Visitors come from all over the world to see them, and almost everyone who stands in front of them reports the same experience. They feel something they cannot fully explain. Not sadness exactly, not wonder exactly. Something that feels older than both of those things. Because what you are looking at when you look at those two skeletons is not history. It is a mirror. The same drive that made those two people reach for each other 6,000 years ago is running in your nervous system right now. Nothing has changed. The brain is the same. The need is the same. The way a room changes when they walk into it is the same. Ancient humans did not have the words for what they felt. But they had something better. They had the willingness to show it. Every single day. For as long as they lived. And sometimes for 6,000 years after.